Namaste, Dandavat Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Sripad Bhakti Madhava Maharaj, we are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 4, The Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 8, Text 73. Dvitiyam Shatatamasam Shaste Saste Rabhako Dine Trinha Parnadi Vishirnai Kritano Bhyarchayan Vibhum. In the second month, Dhruva Maharaj ate only every 6 days, and for his eatables he took dry grass and leaves. Thus he continued his worship. Text 74. Tritiyam Chanayad Masam Navame Navame Hani Abhaksha Uttama Shlokam Upadhavat Samadhina. In the third month he drank water only every 9 days. Thus he remained completely in trance and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is adored by select verses. Text 75. Chaturtam api bhaimasam dvadhase dvadhase hani vayu bhaksho jitasvaso dhyayan devam adharayat. In the fourth month, On the fourth month, Dhruva Maharaj became a complete master of the breathing exercise, and thus he inhaled air only every 12th day. In this way, he became completely fixed in his position and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 76. Panchame masyanu prapte jitasvaso nripatmaja yayan brahma padarkena tastostanor ivachala. By the fifth month, Maharaj Dhruva, the son of the king, had controlled his breathing so perfectly that he was able to stand on only one leg, just as a column stands, without motion, and concentrate his mind fully on the Parabrahman. Text 77. Sarvato manna akrisya hridhi bhutendriyasayam dhyayan bhagavato rupam nadrakshit kinchana param. He completely controlled his senses and their objects, and in this way he fixed his mind, without diversion to anything else, upon the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. The yogic principles of meditation are clearly explained here. One has to fix one's mind upon the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without diversion to any other objective. It is not that one can meditate or concentrate on an impersonal objective. To try to do so is simply a waste of time, for it is unnecessarily troublesome, as explained in Bhagavad Gita. Text 78. Adharam mahad adinam pradhana purusheshvaram brahmadharaya manhasya trayolokascha kampire. When Dhruva Maharaj thus captured the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the refuge of the total material creation, and who is the master of all living entities, the three worlds began to tremble. Purport. In this verse, the particular word Brahma is very significant. Brahman refers to one who not only is the greatest, but has the potency to expand to an unlimited extent. How is it possible for Dhruva Maharaj to capture Brahman within his heart? This question has been very nicely answered by Jiva Goswami. He says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the origin of Brahman. For since he comprises everything material and spiritual, there cannot be anything greater than he. In Bhagavad Gita, also the Supreme Godhead says, I am the resting place of Brahman. Many persons, especially the Mayavadi philosophers, consider Brahman the biggest, all-expanding substance. But according to this verse and other Vedic literatures, such as Bhagavad Gita, the resting place of Brahman is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as the resting place of the sunshine is the globe. Srila Jiva Goswami therefore says that since the transcendental form of the Lord is the seed of all greatness, he is the Supreme Brahman. Since the Supreme Brahman was situated in the heart of Dhruva Maharaj, he became heavier than the heaviest, and therefore everything trembled in all the three worlds and in the spiritual world. The Mahatattva, or the sum total of the material creation, is to be understood to be the ultimate end of all universes, including all living entities therein. Brahman is the resort of the Mahatattva, which includes all material and spiritual entities. It is described in this connection that the Supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead, is the master of both Pradhan and Purusha. Pradhan means subtle matter, such as ether. Purusha means the spiritual spark living of both. The spiritual spark living. Purusha means the spiritual spark living entities who are entangled in the subtle material existence. These may also be described as para prakriti and apara prakriti, as stated in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna, being the controller of both the prakritis, is thus the master of Pradhan and Purusha. In the Vedic hymns also, the Supreme Brahman is described as Anta Pravishta Shasta. This indicates that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is controlling everything and entering into everything. The Brahma Samhita 5.35 further confirms this. Andhantarasta Paramanujayantarastam. He has entered not only the universes, but even the atom. In Bhagavad Gita 10.42, Krishna also says, Vishtabhyaham idam Krishnam. Vishtabhyam idam Krishnam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead controls everything by entering into it. By associating constantly with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his heart, Dhruva Maharaj naturally became equal to the greatest Brahman by his association, and thus became the heaviest, and the entire universe trembled in conclusion. The entire universe trembled. In conclusion, a person who always concentrates on the transcendental form of Krishna within his heart can very easily strike the whole world with wonder at his activities. This is the perfection of yoga performance, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 6.47. Yoginam api sarvesham. Of all yogis, the bhakti yogi, who thinks of Krishna always within his heart and engages in his loving transcendental service, is the topmost. Ordinary yogis can exhibit wonderful material activities known as Astasiddhi, 8 kinds of yogic perfection, but a pure devotee of the Lord can surpass these perfections by performing activities which can make the whole universe tremble. Text 79. Yadhaikapadena sapartivarbakas tasto tad anugasta nipidita mahi nanhamatat ibendradishtita tariva savyatarata pade pade. As Dhruva Maharaj, the king's son, kept himself steadily standing on one leg, the pressure of his big toe pushed down half the earth, just as an elephant being carried on a boat rocks the boat left and right with his every step. Purport. The most significant expression in this verse is Partibharbaka, son of the king. When Dhruva Maharaj was at home, although he was a king's son, he was prevented from getting on the lap of his father. But when he became advanced in self-realization or devotional service, by the pressure of his toe, he could push down the whole earth. That is the difference between ordinary consciousness and Krishna consciousness. In ordinary consciousness, a king's son may be refused something even by his father. But when the same person becomes fully Krishna conscious within his heart, he can push down the earth with the pressure of his toe. One cannot argue. How is it that Dhruva Maharaj, who was prevented from getting up on the lap of his father, could press down the whole earth? This argument is not very much appreciated by the learned, for it is an example of Nagna Matrika logic. By this logic, one would think that because of his mother in her childhood was naked, she should remain naked even when she is grown up. The stepmother of Dhruva Maharaj might have been thinking in a similar way. Since she had refused to allow him to get up on the lap of his father, how could Dhruva Maharaj perform such wonderful activities as pressing down the whole earth? She must have been very surprised when she learned that Dhruva Maharaj, by concentrating constantly on the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, could press down the entire earth like an elephant who presses down the boat on which it is loaded. Text 80. Tasmin abhidyayat Tasmin abhidyayati vishvam atmano sarharam hirudayasum ananyayadiya loka niruchavasa nipidita brishaham saloka palaha sharhanam yayorharim. When Dhruva Maharaj became practically one in heaviness with Lord Vishnu, the total consciousness, due to his fully concentrating and his closing all the holes of his body, the total universe breathing became choked up, and all the great demigods in the planetary system felt suffocated, and thus took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. When hundreds of persons are sitting in an airplane, although they remain individual units, they each share in the total force of the airplane, which runs at thousands of miles per hour. Similarly, when unit energy is identified with the service of the total energy, the unit energy becomes as powerful as the total energy. As explained in the previous verse, Dhruva Maharaj, because of his spiritual advancement, became almost the total heaviness, and thus he pressed down the whole earth. Moreover, by such spiritual power, his unit body became the total body of the universe. Thus, when he closed the holes of his unit body to firmly concentrate his mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the units of the universe, namely all the living entities, including the big demigods, felt the pressure of suffocation as if their breathing were being choked. Therefore, they all took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because they were perplexed as what had happened. This example of Dhruva Maharaja's closing the holes of his personal body and thereby closing the breathing holes of the total universe clearly indicates that a devotee, by his personal devotional service, can influence all the people of the whole world to become devotees of the Lord. If there is only one pure devotee in pure Krishna consciousness, he can change the total consciousness of the world into Krishna consciousness. This is not very difficult to understand if we study the behavior of Dhruva Maharaj. 81. Deva Uchu Naivam Vidhamo Bhagavan Pranarodham Characharashakila Satvadhamna Videhi Tano Vrijinadvimoksham Praptavayam Svam Sharanam Sharanyam. The demigod said, Dear Lord, you are the refuge of all moving and non-moving living entities. We feel all living entities to be suffocating, their breathing processes choked up. We have never experienced such a thing. Since you are the ultimate shelter of all surrendered souls, we have therefore approached you. Kindly save us from this danger. Purport. Dhruva Maharaja's influence attained by executing devotional service unto the Lord was felt even by the demigods, who had never before experienced such a situation. Because of Dhruva Maharaja's controlling his breathing, the entire universal breathing process was choked. It is by the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that material entities cannot breathe, whereas spiritual entities are able to breathe. Material entities are the products of the Lord's external energy, whereas spiritual entities are the products of the Lord's energy. Spiritual entities are the products of the Lord's internal energy. The demigods approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the controller of both kinds of entities, in order to know why their breathing was choked. The Supreme Lord is the ultimate goal for the solution to all problems within this material world. In the spiritual world, there are no problems, but the material world is always problematic. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the master of both the material and spiritual worlds, it is better to approach him in all problematic situations. Therefore, those who are devotees have no problems in this material world. Vishbham Purana Sukhayate from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Devotees are free from all problems because they are fully surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For a devotee, everything in the world is very pleasing because he knows how to use everything in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. And thus ends our reading for today. We'll continue from text 82. Actually, no, we'll read this last shloka. Sri Bhagavanu Vacha Mabhaista Balam Tapaso Durhatyayan Nibhartayishye Pratihatasvadama Yato Hiva Prana Nirota Asid Autannapadir Mai Sangatatma. The Supreme Personality of Godhead replied, My dear demigods, do not be perturbed by this. It is due to the severe austerity and full determination of the son of King Uttanapad, who is now fully absorbed in thought of me. He has obstructed the universal breathing process. You can safely return to your respective homes. I shall stop this boy in his severe acts of austerities, and you will be saved from this situation. Purport. Here one word, Sangat Atma, is misinterpreted by the Mayavadi philosophers, who say that the self of Dhruva Maharaj became one with the Supreme Self, the personality of Godhead. The Mayavad philosophers who want to prove by this word that the Supersoul and the individual soul become united in this way and that after such unification the individual soul has no separate existence. But here it is clearly said by the Supreme Lord that Dhruva Maharaj was so absorbed in meditation on the thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that he himself, the universal consciousness, was attracted to Dhruva. In order to please the demigods, he wanted to go himself to Dhruva Maharaj to stop him from this severe austerity. The Mayavadi philosopher's conclusion that the supersoul and the individual soul became united is not supported by this state. Rather, the supersoul, the personality of Godhead, wanted to stop Dhruva Maharaj from this severe austerity. By pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one pleases everyone, just as by watering the root of a tree one satisfies every branch, twig, and leaf of the tree. If one can attract the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one naturally attracts the whole universe, because Krishna is the supreme cause of the universe. All the demigods were afraid of being totally vanquished by suffocation, but the personality of Godhead assured them that Dhruva Maharaj was a great devotee of the Lord and was not about to annihilate everyone in the universe. A devotee is never envious of other living entities. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the fourth canto, eighth chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Dhruva Maharaj Leaves Home for the Forest. And thus ends our reading for today. We'll continue on to chapter 9. Dhruva Maharaj returns home on Monday. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the worldwide devotees. Sama Bhaktiveda Vrinda Ki Jai. Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Nashangapali Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju Ki Jai. Gangamayi Yamunamayi Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Giri Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai. Sham Kund Radhakund Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Jai Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Scientific Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Institute Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari 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 Bol. Dandavat Pranam.